there were two R.E.M. concerts, right? The first year in like '83, they played inside the Busch Student Center in the Hardee's. And I remember going to that show. Oh, Christ. Was there something going on? There's like all this traffic. I'm not going to be able to. I'm never going to be able to make the left to get out of here. Oh. They played inside in the Hardee's. And I remember seeing the show. Mitch Easter opened up for him. Mitch Easter had like more guitars than songs. He literally like looked like he was changing his guitar with every song. Mitch Easter and what was that band that did Every Word Means No? I can't remember the name of that. Boy, getting senior moments here. But they played inside, and one thing I remember about that was because it was inside the student center, the acoustics were frankly awful. And there was a lot of brickwork in that area, and so it just reverberated and just sounded terrible. It was like a bad cover band doing R.E.M. songs. So that was a great show, though. I was like right up front, smashed up on the stage. R.E.M., of course, would never play a venue that small. What about 200, 300 people tops over there? And the year after that, they played outdoors at the Busch Student Center, but in the yard area. And in those days, there weren't any buildings there. So it was this huge yard. And I remember they were playing like the Capitol Theater or something like that the night before, and they were playing like Princeton University the night after. And both of those shows were like $20 a ticket or some amount of money. But the show at Rutgers was free. And so what happened that at that show was that because it was free, everyone was like, well, I can buy a ticket or I can go to this free show version of R.E.M. And then the second thing that happened was, since it was outside, they would literally get, fraternities were showing up with like barbecues, and they would cooking food and things like that. So it was this amazing outdoor thing. And of course, the security, it was an open field, so people bring adult beverages, and I remember after the concert was over, basically wading through a sea of discarded cans.
And it was the year before I got to Rutgers, and they played in a food court. So I don't know if they still have it, but at the time they had like a food court with Hardee's and like tables for students to eat and study and read or whatever. So R.E.M. played in the food court, and I remember just like wanting to go so badly, and being stuck in my home in Monroe, knowing that at the exact same time R.E.M. was playing stuff from Murmur or Chronic Town. They were my favorite band at that point in my life, and I couldn't believe they were playing so close and I wasn't getting to go. But like I said, they came back. They came back twice actually to Rutgers. They came in the spring of '85. They played Spring Weekend. And I remember it was outdoors at the Busch Campus Center, and it rained earlier in the day, but it cleared up by nighttime, so the show could go on. The opening band, the Neats, were just fabulous. They were a Boston band that really came out with some cool records. Kind of on the jangle pop meets Mission of Burma sort of combination. Then R.E.M. comes out, and man, I think it might still be my favorite concert of all time. There was just kind of a connection there that you don't see at every single concert. This was their pre-construction tour, which was just before they did a tour of colleges and universities right before Fables of the Reconstruction came out. And, they played most of that album, and none of us had heard it yet, but people were like, cheering in the middle of songs, like when they heard Can't Get There From Here for the first time. There's real excitement about it, and it's not surprising that R.E.M. went from being like these college radio darlings to one of the most famous bands, because you could really feel like the connection between them and the audience, and just they were firing on all cylinders, and it was just incredible. I remember actually that MTV came down to film the show. That's the clip you saw on YouTube. And they came up to RSU, and they actually took some B-roll and interviewed a couple of the DJs there. So you can go on YouTube and see my friend Steve-O queuing up a record of R.E.M. The only other time I know for sure they played here was in '87, and That was at the Lewis Brown Athletic Center. 10,000 Maniacs opened, and by then, they were onto the Work Tour, and it was a different crowd. It was less of a, they'd become bigger. They just put out Document, and so they were really getting a taste of fame for the first time. So, the audience was not necessarily entirely there to share in this, amazing experience like at Busch. And one guy, during the encore, while Michael Stipe was singing Midnight Blue, the Lou Gramm song, threw a light stick at him. And I thought he was going to just go off the stage, but clearly by this point, Michael Stipe had seen a lot of stuff on stage. So he did what was the exact right thing to do, which was to wave the light stick at the offender, call him names, and shame him. And then, huge cheer from the audience, and he finished the song. So it could not have been a more professional way of dealing with it. So, yeah, I would say R.E.M., definitely one of the best bands I've ever seen, and I would absolutely consider that Busch show to be the best concert I've ever seen.